Hi guys, it's all to play for. That was the message Mark Harper was clinging to following the worst election results in some cases for the Conservatives since the Second World War. In this interview with Laura Kuenssberg, the Transport Secretary claimed that another set of pollsters are providing a different vision of the future than someone like John Curtis, who is almost certain that Keir Starmer's party will form the next government. The survey Harper is talking about is putting Labour in hung parliament territory, meaning they will not form a majority. Is he right? And if not, what is he up to?
You'll have heard there, Suella Braverman, your former colleague, has essentially said you have to change your approach or you're going to die when it gets to the general election.
Well, it's two aspects to that, I think. First of all, I mean, you obviously had a piece on polling there. If you look at the analysis that Rawlings and Thrasher have done, acknowledged experts, it says that the performance over the last few days means we're looking at a hung parliament, so Labour wouldn't get a majority. That's a better position. That means the election's outcome's closer than the polls are suggesting. So my read from that is it's all to play for. The election isn't a foregone conclusion and you shouldn't take the voters for granted.
You're saying it's all to play for.
So it's all to play for.
All of these councillors around the country, you've lost everything apart from the mayoral election results.
Yes, I think the national equivalent vote share, the analysis that's been done by Rawlings and Thrasher and that thing there showed that it's closer than the national polls. You shouldn't take the voters for granted. It's everything to fight for. It's a lot to do. I absolutely acknowledge that. On the point about policy, I think the Prime Minister is focusing on what the country's priorities are. So that's about reducing taxes on working people. We've done that twice already this year. That takes time to feed through. Focusing on stopping the votes. We've got the Rwanda legislation on the books and now we need to see flights taking off. And then the final area is obviously priorities on reducing waiting lists for the National Health Service. Those are the country's priorities and those are the Prime Minister and the government's priorities.
Okay, well, let's start off with the latter part and then I'll get to the main issue. When you mentioned here about bringing down the waiting lists, how are you going to achieve that? Because in order to bring down the waiting list, you need to recruit doctors and nurses and you need to retain doctors and nurses. And you've been fighting with staff in the NHS over the last year and a half, saying we don't want to give them more money. So I don't know how you're going to bring down the waiting list. Now, when it comes to the small boats, they're actually up. And when it comes to the economy, well, people are not feeling these tax cuts. They're not feeling any growth in the economy. So it's all about perception. If the people don't feel that things are improving, they're not going to vote for you. Now, the other part, of course, he says it's all to fight for. Now, this is about encouraging Conservatives to come out and vote. But by pushing this narrative, he also encourages people to vote against the Conservatives because there is a risk for Labour going into the general election that people will think, well, it's a foregone conclusion. Labour are going to win. I might as well sit at home. Labour don't want that. They want to encourage people to come out and vote. They need to make sure that people cast their ballot for Labour and not the Conservatives, or that they don't just sit at home and allow somebody else to go out and vote. So, but the Conservatives are in that boat as well. They can't say, look, it's all over, we're not going to win. They need to encourage people to come out and at least have their base come and vote for them. But by doing so, by saying that the polls are narrowing, of course, it's going to encourage people to come out and vote against them as well. So while it's looking more and more likely, according to real polling, that the Conservatives are going to lose and lose massively, I don't believe they're going to end up with fewer than 100 seats. It's possible, but at this stage, I don't think it's going to happen. But if they say to people, look, where the polls are narrowing, you need to come out and vote, that will probably happen. People will be encouraged in some way, their base. But of course, people who are not Tory supporters are watching this as well, and they're going to say, well, if he's saying that the polls are narrowing, then we better get out and vote to make sure that they don't stay in power. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.